Rock Hill and the world, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on what time you're watching this. I'm Chris Corrado here with another episode of Rock Hill Video. Our guest today is Congressman Ralph Norman. He's going to talk to us about the issues. As I always like to say, at the beginning of every show, all of our guests are treated fairly. Everyone has a fair opportunity to share their opinions and express how they feel on the issues. We're not here to bash anybody or praise anybody. Everyone gets a fair shot on our show. I actually went to Winthrop University and was a mass communication major, which isn't far from here. It's about 2 miles up the road. And that's one of the things we learned in journalism class is it's hard news. You don't go on here to share your opinion. You give everybody an opportunity to share their thoughts and feelings and not berate them or praise them. It's their time to share their thoughts on the issues. So today we have on, like I said, Congressman Ralph Norman. Ralph, thank you so much for being on our show. It's an honor. Ralph, what would you like to, with our viewers, share with us about your upbringing, early life, family life?
Well, we started, born in Rock Hill, born and raised in Rock Hill, lived here all my life. Started out in Rock Hill Homes. My family, we're in the real estate business. We rented the homes at what's known as the Rock Hill Homes, and then had a series of moves and ended up on Sharonwood Lane, and were fortunate enough to be active in the real estate business really through my high school years, where I went to Rock Hill High, and after went to Presbyterian College. After that, went in with the business. So it's been a labor of love here. We got a great town. It's a great location to get in the real estate business and stay in the real estate business. So that's how we started out.
Great. So I'm sure just like many other professions, being an elected official is very stressful. Why did you decide to run for office?
Well, it hadn't been stressful for me. I'm lucky I did not get into it until after my children were raised. And I'd been in the business arena, and I decided to get in because I thought I could have something to offer. Politics is something, it can be stressful, but I'm fortunate because I don't need anything out of it, and it gives you a freedom to vote your conscience, and gives you a freedom to hear both sides, and it gives you a freedom to make a decision that is in the best interest of the people that you serve. Not everybody agrees with me, but I've enjoyed it. It's been a real pleasure to contribute both on the state level and now that I'm on the federal level.
What have been some of your good and bad experiences since you've been in Congress?
My good experience has been all the people we've been able to help. When you help that disabled veteran, when you help that family that is at the airport and needs a passport, they've had a trip planned and they just didn't check it. It's easy to do. When you help that mother who's having trouble buying insulin and getting her connected in the right field so that she can hopefully afford the medicine. And it's the people that I really enjoy. Negatives, there's too much money in politics. It's gotten to be where outside groups are getting involved and picking people that can do their bidding in Congress and then on the state level. And we've got to get back to independence, and that's what the framers of the Constitution intended. And that's what I'm fortunate because I can vote freely. And as I mentioned, I don't need anything out of Washington, D.C.
Great. There's a lot going on right now. Everyone, I feel, deep down has a genuine appreciation and sympathy for other people. And we're just trying to look for some of the best ways that we could help each other out. And this is a very, very big issue. And we hear about this a lot when it comes to taking care of Americans. But there's a big fight going on right now. So when it comes to you, why do we not want America to be a socialist nation?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. There's two different worldviews. You've got the worldview of the one thing that made America what it is capitalism. The ability to reach your potential in whatever field you choose, and to succeed or to fail. Socialism, which is where the left is going now, they're admittedly socialistic. the AOCs, the Rashida Tlaibs, the Omars, the Bernie Sanders. They want government to run everything, and it's a system of government that's never worked. Venezuela back in the 70s was one of the richest countries in the world. Now it's one of the poorest. So it's shocking to me that people would want to go to that, but it's not shocking when you see what the universities are teaching, what the professors are teaching, what that graduate student comes out thinking of socialism. Now, I do think crony capitalism is an enemy of capitalism. Those who feed off the government, they manipulate politicians, they get people in office that do their bidding for them on different things. And I'm totally against crony capitalism. And it's going to be the downfall of our country if now more than ever, if we choose the socialistic path. Hopefully we can stop that, but it's going to take people getting in office. I will recruit business people. They don't have to agree with me, but they made money and lost money. And here I tell everybody, for the youngest person, this is a billfold, as you can see. I want you to spend your own money. I don't want the government spending your money other than on the basics. And as I tell young people, everywhere I speak, I tell them, you're in politics. No, I'm not, Congressman. I said, well, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a job? Many raised their hand. I said, have you ever seen the top of a paycheck and the bottom? Is there a difference? That's government. And I want you to be able to spend your money on whatever cause, to give it to whatever church you would like, or whatever group that you feel like would like donations. It's choice. And unfortunately, if we lose it, it's like your health. You'll lose it. Once it's gone, it's gone. So I'm fighting for capitalism, and I always will.
Thank you. And this kind of definitely goes to our next question that we want to talk about is every election season we always hear, how we're going to make healthcare more affordable. We have so many different ways. You got the Affordable Care Act, which I believe we were just talking before the interview about the new potential Supreme Court justice, and they've been asking her about it. And then we have someone like Bernie Sanders who wants to have more government involvement in your health care. And then you have people who are like, look, I just want to have lots of different options across the board when it comes to private health insurance. Both sides will say their side works better, it's more affordable, and look how it works in this country, etc. So what are your thoughts on making health care more affordable?
Great question. This is the number one challenge, aside from getting our country on a firm financial basis, is getting the health care so people can afford it. You can't afford to get sick now. Now, one of the big debates with the Supreme Court justice is the vote that they'll have on Obamacare. We took out the mandate, the tax through the tax law, and they'll be debating if it's a tax or is it not a tax. But here's my thoughts. In your personal lives, if you've only got one grocery store to go to with no other choice, how does that work for you? If you've only got one builder to build your house, how does that work for you? Competition breeds excellence. And the fact that the socialistic system wants the government where there is no competition, there is no cost containment. And in healthcare specifically, we need patient-centered healthcare. We need to be able to choose our healthcare that fits us. As an example, the young person or the first married couple would want maternity care. At my age, I don't need maternity care. You ought to be able to pick and choose. The HSA plans that the businesses can write off the expenses, it should be there. Competition is what we need in the healthcare. We've got to get the physicians, who many are not choosing the profession because the paperwork, the feeling they can't spend as much time with the patient. The competition is the key, and we got to involve have to involve the physicians, insurance companies. We ought to be able to if there's an insurance company in Texas that we want to get health care from, coverage, that's what we ought to be able to do. That's what I'm working toward. Hopefully in the next term next 2 years in Congress, if I'm reelected, we will work on that and give people choices and let them decide.
Thank you. And this, moving right along, definitely still kind of goes with the same couple of questions. Is at the beginning of the year, we heard coronavirus, COVID-19, and it's in the middle of a pandemic, and there's a lot of people that are concerned. They're concerned for their health and so much more. How can you help us stay safe during pandemics such as COVID-19?
Well, we've learned a lot since January. Actually, this is a disease that nobody saw coming. This is a disease that came from China. This is a disease that is very contagious, and what we've learned is to take your normal precautions, to social distance, to wear masks if you're in close proximity, to basically just use common sense, wash your hands. We're doing a seminar, the frontline doctors are doing a seminar in Washington where they're discussing some of the preventative things that people can do over the counter. Vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D, things like that are common sense to take, very inexpensive. And then I guess the ultimate goal is to have the vaccine, which I think will be here around Thanksgiving of this year. This president has done a great job at Operation Warp Speed in getting the fast-tracked the cures for the disease. It typically takes 5 to 7 years. Now we will have done it in a short period of time, and it'll take some time to make sure people have the confidence to take it, but that will come over time.
Thank you. Next question we wanted to talk about is term limits. What do you think is fair or makes the most sense when it comes to being able to continue to run for office?
I'm a big proponent of term limits, and I say that, and when you put bills up in Congress, as I have done, nobody wants to do it. I even put up a bill that put on the ballot, would you favor term limits? Simple as that. Would you favor term limits? And I couldn't get that because the politicians know that that the voters overwhelmingly would go for it. Is it fair to live off the government for 25 to 30 years? No. You get out of touch. You ought to come live under these laws that you are passing. And term limits, you have it with airline pilots. They reach a certain age, they can't fly, regardless of when they started. Now, the counter argument to that is every 2 years, in the case of the House of Representatives, you run for office, and 6 years for the United States Senate. My reply back, the money that it takes to run for office and the advantage incumbents have makes that almost impossible for that person to get involved in politics, and that's not right. So I would put up, and I will continue to put up a bill every year, basically saying pick a term that Congress thinks makes sense. Like in my case, is 6 years enough? Is 8 years enough? I would go for either one of those. Maybe even 10, but definitely not 20 and 30 years as some members in Congress have been serving.
Okay. We live in Rock Hill, South Carolina, the top of the state, not far from Charlotte, North Carolina. I've lived here, this will be 21 years this month. I'm originally from Queens, New York, and there's a lot of people from up north coming down this way and out west and Florida and all over the world. So with that group of diversity that's coming to Rock Hill and South Carolina, how will you continue to keep South Carolina red?
Well, I think people are coming here because of a lot of different reasons. Look at our quality of life, look at our low taxes, look at our proximity to the mountains, to the beaches. We've got great air, we got great water. And so as long as we keep South Carolina pristine, people will want to come here. The riots, the high taxes, as your home state, California, people are coming here. Just last week, I found out that you cannot get a moving truck out of New York City. I went to a meeting of probably 30 homeowners, and when we started talking, I had them raise their hand. I said, how many of you, where are y'all from? And all of them raised their hand from New York and California. So we got a drove of people that'll come here because of quality of life. Now, what we've got to be careful about is, in many cases, the people that leave these states come here and want to and forget the reason that they left in the first place, and the failed government that they put up with, they try to impose here. We've got to take a stand against that. That's where citizen involvement, we the people getting involved, and if we don't do that, then the states South Carolina will end up like some of the states have had all the problems. There's no excuse for that. That's my job, to make sure that less government, less taxes, quality of life, and have this state be a fertile ground for small business, big or large. And we don't have to give our state away. I tell any economic developer, this giving South Carolina away is over with, because those states having trouble, New Jersey, New York, California, Illinois, they're coming here, and we've got to make sure that it's the quality business that we want, and that we keep the things that made us successful, which are the free enterprise system and the things I mentioned.
Thank you, Ralph. Yeah, almost everybody I talk to, whether they come up from up north or another country, that's typically everything you just said is why they like it here. So I know the people moving here and a good bit of the people who already live here definitely want to keep it that way. So I was definitely curious about that. During the middle of this pandemic, we've had a lot of unrest between law enforcement and citizens of different cities and states, etc. And that definitely is a concern, especially for a lot of people in this area, and us not being far from Charlotte. So just curious how we could support local law enforcement and citizens to keep us all safe and civil together.
One thing that's been so disappointing to me is to have law enforcement denigrated like it's been. Do you have bad actors in law enforcement? Yes. Do you have bad actors in doctors? Yes. Do you have bad actors in politicians? Yes. You don't throw everybody out. When it gets to, like it has now in certain parts of the country, where people are disagreeing with a position of a politician or with something that bad, where one person does something to another person, as has happened in the Floyd case, that's one case. But the police officers keep this country safe. They are overall a great group of people that I support. And we've got problems if every time something happens as a riot and innocent businesses get burned down. People lose a life savings. We've got to keep control of this country. And I hate to say it, but I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. And the day that we cannot agree to disagree, and the day that we are faced with mobs that are attacking people and buildings and businesses, has got to stop. And that's why I support law enforcement 100%. If you do a crime, if you tear a building up, you go to jail. And we're a nation of laws, not outlaws. And I fully support the police, and we've got to show that. Everywhere I go and wherever, whether it's Washington or Rock Hill, when I see a police officer, I say, thank you for what you do. They don't do it for the money. They do it because it's a calling. And I respect them tremendously. They go to places we don't go. They see things we don't see. And I'll support them 100%. The day we defund our police department is the day we lose our state and our nation.
Okay. Thank you. Ralph, you've been around a little bit longer than I have, so I could say, you've definitely seen more presidential elections than I have, and, going back as far as I can remember, I've never seen it get so divided, between Biden and Trump and just the way everybody feels. But I know you support Trump, and I was just curious, and our viewers would like to know, why Trump as opposed to Biden?
Number one question I get is, why can't you politicians get together? And I always reply back, how do you have a meeting of the minds for those who just think guns kill people and to do away with our Second Amendment rights versus those of us who do not? How do you have a meeting of the minds for those who will kill a baby and call it choice, and those of us who do not? How do you have a meeting of the minds of those who think everybody ought to be able to come into this country scot-free, and those of us who do not? How do you have a meeting of the minds of those who think that we ought to give voting rights to felons, to illegal aliens, pay for education, pay for medical care, when we're $28 trillion in debt? Somebody explain the math to me on that. And so, how has it gotten that way? We've allowed politicians to say one thing and do another. We've allowed, and get back to crony capitalism, we've allowed politicians to be put up by groups that they've got their interest in mind, but it's our money. It's not their money. And we've got to take a stand against these politicians and beat them. Now, with what I'm facing in Washington now, I can't just what I described, I can't have a meeting of the minds. You've got to, vote them out of office, and you got to work toward that. And I have no qualms with doing that. I'm supporting more people now because they represent capitalism, free enterprise. We've existed for 230 years. The AOCs, the Rashida Tlaibs, and the Omars think they can redo the Constitution. And what basis do they have? What's their background? And it's we got a fight on our hands. But that's why I support Donald Trump. Last 4 years, with what he's had to contend with, has not been right. With the media and with the impeachment, Nancy Pelosi is her values do not represent South Carolina values. So that's just a few of the reasons I support him. He loves the country. I've been with him a good bit, and he is as kind and as genuine of a person, despite what you hear. He's tough. He's a businessman, but that's a good thing. You want somebody fighting for your country, and that's why I support him.
Ralph, not just as an elected official, as a human being, if people want to know more about you, aside from what you'd like to share with us, where can they go to learn more about you?
Go to my website, repralphnorman.com. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. And call me. I mean, I enjoy meeting people. I enjoy getting to know people. I enjoy trying to solve problems the best I can. Do I solve everything for people? No. But I want government to be responsive. I want them to deal straight up, and I want them to I want that person to feel like if I didn't solve this problem, we tried. And that's what we try to do. All of our office goes to work, and I enjoy getting to know people as they are. We got a great community, and that's the joy of whoever's watching this. The joy of putting your name on the line. While it's got the downside, it's got far more positives, because you can do so much good in government to cut red tape for people and to solve a problem. Far outweighs the negatives that I've experienced.
Thank you, Ralph. Ralph, we talked about a lot today. Is there anything specific I didn't ask, or anything you'd like to share to close it out?
No, I would just say that that people are going to have to get involved. When I go to the businesses, I say, "What's your main problem?" 9 times out of 10, people is people. Now, people have put the politics. They're spending our money. We have got to get people in office that remember where they came from, and will treat taxpayer dollars as sacred money, because it is. And I just believe in the things that made this country great, and I'll fight for it. Now, if we're just going to lay back and not do anything, then we're going to lose our country now more than ever. And I carry a seed around with me normally, and I show my children how a seed, one, it's a miracle. When you plant a seed, the miracle of God in growth. How do you have something dormant and then a year later put it, and it grows, with fruit? And that's what I would tell people. Think of capitalism and freedom as a seed that is in your hands. You need to sow it. If you keep it in the bag, it's not going to produce fruit. You've got to plant it, you got to work it, And that's what I would ask you to do. And again, it's we the people now, not we the government, not we the politician, we the people. And if we don't do that, then if we don't all get involved, vote in this election, take action with getting involved in politics, because we're all in it. And you'll find a lot of joy, you'll help a lot of people, and it's the right thing to do.
Thank you, Congressman Ralph Norman. We really appreciate you taking time for us today. As always, this is Chris Corrado at Rock Hill Video. We're on rockhillvideo.com. As I always like to say at the end of our shows, we appreciate you all for viewing. Anyone ever wants to come on our show and talk about the issues, everyone is welcome. Democrat, Republican, third party, any issues you want to talk about. We don't show favoritism. I've watched many news stations in the past where they'll bring a guest on and they'll bash him or they'll bash her or they'll invite one of their buddies on to do that, and that's just not what we want to do. Everyone is equally welcome to be on this show. Now, word from our sponsors.